Trump and Biden, poisons for Beijing. Take a look at this picture. It captures the heated debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in October 2020. This took place just weeks before one of the most contentious presidential elections in U.S. history. It's almost certain this image will resurface.
Tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
They want to battle for the soul of America, and we still are. That's why I'm running for re-election.
The sweeping victories in the primary elections for both Trump and Biden are bringing the U.S. closer to a rematch between these two formidable octogenarians. Facing this prospect, there is one nation on edge, and that's China. The anxiety in Beijing is so intense that many have likened both Trump and Biden to poisons for the Chinese dream. Why, then, is China the biggest loser, regardless of how the U.S. political landscape shapes up in November? To answer this, we need to first understand the significance of the U.S. presidency to Beijing. The President of the United States, as the head of the executive branch, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, and leader of one of the two main legislative parties, holds several key roles as per the U.S. Constitution. With these powers, the U.S. president is central in shaping and implementing policies related to Beijing. Historically, these policies have proven crucial to China's development. Let's go back to 1972, when then-President Richard Nixon made a historic visit to China. After this visit, U.S.-China relations took off like a rocket. Initially, the relationship served as a counterbalance to the Soviet Union, but subsequent U.S. presidents began to see Beijing's potential as a key economic partner. A series of liberal policies from the White House stimulated China's growth. In China's economic boom, one could see the influence of American capitalists, a vast market, significant investments, and advanced manufacturing technologies. These were the benefits Beijing reaped from the friendly policies of U.S. presidents over the decades. Conversely, a good relationship with China also brought substantial benefits to Washington, D.C., indirectly helping many U.S. presidents fulfill their economic promises to voters. However, all good things must come to an end. China's rapid economic development spurred Beijing to revive its ambitions of dominance. This time, what China covets from the U.S. isn't investment or technology secrets, but the mantle of global supremacy. Recognizing the threat posed by the billion-strong nation, America's attitude shifted, starting with Barack Obama's pivot to the Asia-Pacific region. Determined to weaken Beijing's influence, the 44th U.S. president planned to withdraw troops from Afghanistan and refocus 60% of the U.S. Air Force and Navy to the Asia-Pacific. The TPP agreement and strategies to engage China's adversaries were some of the moves Obama made, causing Beijing considerable distress. This helped Beijing realize the repercussions that unfriendly policies from the White House could bring. Yet, perhaps even in their wildest dreams, the leaders in Zhongnanhai could not have imagined their nightmare had only just begun. In January 2017, the White House had a new occupant. Donald Trump, representing the Republican Party, became the 45th president of the United States. At the time, the billionaire was seen as a preferred candidate by Beijing.
We will make America great again.
We will make America great again. Trump's famous slogan was exactly what China hoped for in a U.S. president. Policies focusing on domestic issues to make America great again were expected to replace Obama's pivot to Asia strategy. The initial relationship between Trump and China was not bad. In April 2017, just 3 months after Trump took office, Chinese President Xi Jinping visited the U.S. Instead of the White House, Xi and his wife Peng Liyuan were welcomed at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort, signaling Beijing's special regard for this president. Shortly after Xi's visit, Trump visited Beijing in November 2017. During this trip, Trump became the first foreign leader to be honored with a state banquet in the Forbidden City, a privilege reserved for ancient emperors. This reception showed that Beijing had placed a lot of hope in Trump. Beijing believed Trump would dismantle barriers and pave the way for China to ascend to global dominance. However, reality was far from the dream. The relationship between the two superpowers deteriorated rapidly. Just 4 months after Trump's return from Beijing, the U.S.-China trade war officially broke out. Citing unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft, Trump imposed $50 billion in tariffs on Chinese exports to the U.S. In retaliation, China's Ministry of Commerce imposed 25% tariffs on 128 U.S. products, including high-value exports like airplanes, cars, pork, and soybeans. The victims of China's calculated retaliation? The working-class Americans, who were among Trump's most ardent supporters. This well-planned retaliation infuriated Trump. To this day, Trump harbors a trade grudge against China. In his ongoing presidential campaign, the Republican candidate continuously pledges sanctions against Chinese goods.
60% tariffs on Chinese goods. Is that in the cards?
No, I would say maybe it's going to be more than that.
If implemented, these tariffs would severely impact mainland China's manufacturing economy and potentially end U.S.-China trade relations. Trump's threats leave many Chinese businesses fearing his potential re-election. Just recovering from the pandemic, these companies would struggle to withstand the tsunami of import taxes if Trump's threats became reality. That's Trump. What about U.S.-China economic relations under Joe Biden's administration? Despite vehemently criticizing and almost completely dismantling his predecessor's legacy, Biden has inherited the unfriendly policies toward China. The severe tariffs on made-in-China goods from the Trump era have even increased. Currently, the U.S. imposes tariffs ranging from 7.5% to 25% on over $360 billion worth of Chinese imports. Most recently, on May 14th, the U.S. government announced new tariff policies on China's strategic sectors, doubling the tax on electric vehicles to 100%. Beyond taxing difficulties, Biden has made it nearly impossible for Chinese companies to access advanced U.S. technologies. On August 10, 2023, Biden approved an executive order completely banning investments in China across 3 sectors: semiconductors and microelectronics, quantum information technology, and artificial intelligence. These are breakthrough technologies, and this embargo is a move to slam shut Beijing's access door. Biden's strategic blows have caused significant damage to many Chinese companies, potentially slowing their growth by decades. Starting with Trump, continuing and evolving with Biden, the U.S.-China trade war is expected to remain heated in the coming years. Economic growth is the foundation for China to increase its geopolitical influence. Therefore, whether Trump or Biden gets re-elected, both are likely to prioritize strategies to weaken Beijing's economy. The anti-China policies of both U.S. presidential candidates extend beyond economics. Let's talk about Biden's strategy of building an international alliance to curb Beijing's influence. The Quad, AUKUS, ANZUS, and the Five Eyes, with names reminiscent of secret organizations from blockbuster spy movies, these alliances share a common goal: to contain China's influence in the Asia-Pacific region and globally. Looking at this map, it's evident that Beijing is cornered with U.S. allies all around. China's ambitions of dominance remain unfulfilled due to a web of political, military, and intelligence alliances that the U.S. and its allies have spun. China has even likened these alliances to the 8-nation alliance that carved up the country over 120 years ago. At the center of this web is Joe Biden. As a seasoned politician who held significant roles on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee before becoming vice president and then president, Biden played a significant part in shaping Washington, D.C.'s strategy to contain China. The activities of international alliances aimed at containing Beijing, which stagnated during Trump's term, have returned stronger than ever since Biden took office. After taking office, the current U.S. president has made several visits to the Asia-Pacific region. Besides strengthening ties with traditional allies, Biden's trips also have a special mission: to find new partners to help the U.S. address Beijing's hegemonic ambitions. The high-level visit to Vietnam in October 2023, where the two countries agreed to upgrade relations to a comprehensive strategic partnership, is one such example. In Hanoi, the U.S. offered to support Vietnam in becoming a major producer of rare earths, and further, a leading semiconductor manufacturer. This move likely concerns Beijing. For years, rare earths have been China's strategic card in the geopolitical game with Western nations. Biden's calculated foreign policies during his term indicate he is strengthening Obama's pivot to Asia strategy. The biggest loser in this strategy is undoubtedly China. The Taiwan issue is also heating up U.S.-China relations. Under Biden, the continuous visits of senior U.S. officials to Taiwan have angered Beijing. In response, Beijing has conducted live-fire drills around the island. In return, Biden has shown security support for his Northeast Asian allies.
To be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women, would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
A bill to provide $8 billion in aid to Taiwan has been passed. Biden is prepared to do even more. Unifying Taiwan is a burning dream of China's leaders since the end of the Chinese Civil War. However, with Joe Biden in office, this dream may remain just that, a dream. As for Trump, despite his apparent indifference to allies, the billionaire still has ways to trouble China on the international stage, such as ending the conflict in Ukraine. Trump has repeatedly claimed he has a plan to end the war within a snap. Over 2 years of conflict with Moscow has not only exhausted the participants, but also burdened the Western nations supporting Ukraine. Conversely, some countries have benefited from the Moscow-Kiev conflict, with China among them. Watching the tiger fight from the mountain when the West pours resources into the Ukraine conflict, they seem to forget the looming threat of China. The geopolitical pressures China once faced have thus eased. Additionally, China wants to be seen as a key player in the Ukraine reconciliation process, thereby boosting its global standing. The Ukraine conflict has also brought China and Russia closer. Aligning with Moscow offers Beijing substantial benefits: cheap oil supplies, a vast market facing severe sanctions, and military technology. These are the benefits China has enjoyed from Russia over the past 2 years. Therefore, the resolve to end the Ukraine conflict could be a strategic blow that Trump might deliver to China if re-elected. It would strip Beijing of political, economic, and military advantages it is currently enjoying. Frank, unpredictable, unafraid of confrontation, and ready to strike when necessary. These are the words often used to describe Trump. These traits have led the former U.S. president to disregard many diplomatic norms in relations with China. In late 2019 and early 2020, as the U.S. struggled against the COVID-19 pandemic, Trump blamed Beijing to distract from criticism. Chinese virus, Wuhan virus, these were terms Trump used to criticize Beijing. According to Trump, China's cover-up efforts allowed COVID-19 to spiral out of control. These direct criticisms were a significant blow to Beijing. Imagine you are China. For years, you have carefully crafted a beautiful image among your neighbors through sweet-talking strategies. However, out of nowhere, a pesky neighbor appears, continually criticizing you. Not only does this neighbor tear down the facade you've built, but he also incites others to boycott you. How would you feel about this pesky neighbor? Angry, frustrated, but also somewhat fearful of his future antics. This is precisely what Beijing thinks of Donald Trump. With the grievances nurtured from his first term, it's predictable that Trump will continue to expose China if re-elected. Contrary to Trump, Biden's composed and experienced approach is also a formidable weapon in Beijing's eyes. Methodical and strategic, Biden continually makes moves that checkmate China in the key areas of diplomacy, military, economy, and technology. Thanks to his ability to connect with allies, Biden is arguably doing better than Trump in managing the counterbalance across the Pacific. The most serious long-term challenge to the global order, said Secretary of State Anthony Blinken in 2022, Biden's top foreign policy strategist, summarizing the current U.S. government's attitude toward China. Therefore, it wouldn't be surprising if Biden continues policies unfavorable to Beijing if re-elected. To describe the upcoming U.S. election and its impact on Beijing, observers have parodied the famous cat theory of the late Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping. It doesn't matter if it's a black cat or a white cat, as long as it's an American cat, it's a bad cat. This parody perhaps isn't just a joke, but a warning to China. Regardless of who wins in November, both Trump and Biden are ready to be poisons for Beijing's global ambitions.